Welcome to the AskWeldon Show, episode 264. Behaviors teams look for in new pros, training your mouse for FPS, and starting a new esports league. Let's jump into the first question, then we'll get to announcements. First one is from Ryan.
Hey Weldon, I was wondering what kind of capital a person would need in order to start a youth esports league, specifically with League of Legends, and what age group you think it would be appropriate to start with as the youngest age group.
So the real answer to that question is 0. Essentially, if you're doing youth esports, usually your goal is not to make money. And so youth sports in general is just driven by volunteerism. And really the only costs and fees are related to equipment, renting fields, buying soccer nets. You don't need any of that in esports. And so you're already at cost 0. The only thing you need is labor, organization, and just lots and lots of work. So if you want to be some company like Super League where you make a profit and you're like trying to drive some sort of business model, then yeah, you can bootstrap it or you need capital. I mean, it all depends on what you want to do. So there's no real answer to that question outside of the philosophical answer, which is that youth esports generally, you don't need to do anything to start a league. Okay, let's jump into the announcements. So we started scrims again this week, which is really fun. And a couple other teams have started. Some teams have not. Some teams had a much longer off season than us, so they were a lot busier recently. And in the quarantine, we're trying to promote some fitness with fitness trackers. So some of the guys are wearing like fitness trackers, and we have a leaderboard there. And it's really challenging and fun to kind of do quarantine scrims, but I think that overall it doesn't change too much about how we train. Then we're still trying to like hit all the same kind of principles, like making sure we're prepped for scrims, making sure we have high quality training and mental skills training, trying to help the guys with nutrition and just general health, making sure they don't get injured. So everybody's job is still functioning, even though we're in quarantine mode, and we'll see how long that lasts. We haven't really heard anything about the summer split yet and whether or not we're going to be in the studio or whatnot, so we shall see. On the app front, we're really close to an MVP, and there's been a lot of drama over the TSM roster changes and all the shenanigans that have happened with them. But overall, I'm really excited to see Doublelift, Vince, Biofrost, and Bjergsen like playing together again, and can't wait till the next offseason when they pick up Sven Skaren and Hanser. Put the OG squad back together. All right, let's jump into the second question from Problem Solver Learner.
Hey Weldon, I just finished the 3rd week of the Mac program. It's tremendous, and thank you so much for everything that you do.
Well, thanks.
So, my question, what is the most important thing to remember when dealing with value conflicts? I've lost friends over my values, and it's excruciating. I know I can't change other people, but I also know I can't lower my standards to please them either, because then I would lose my identity. Sometimes it just doesn't seem possible to strike a balance, like in religion or politics, for example. And I believe in being tolerant of other people's choices, but in terms of my performance life, I feel like the best way for me to live is by surrounding myself with a core group of like-minded people. What do you think?
All right, so I think you really have a couple questions in there. One of them is, how do I deal with value conflicts? One of them is, who should I choose to be friends with? And another one is, do you think surrounding yourself with like-minded people, is necessary to drive success? And that is one mantra that I think comes from the podcasting, business, self-help world that I think is kind of a little bit BS. Like, there's a lot of like really successful people who are like, surround yourself with the 5 people that inspire you the most, and like your inner circle is depending on your, and I really think like it's kind of an excuse for some people to be assholes and be like, I don't want to be friends with that person because my self-help guru said that I should surround myself with successful people who drive me to be my best. It's good principle when it's applied to cutting somebody who's toxic out of your life, and it's a bad principle when it's applied to just cutting out like decent people that you just don't want to hang out with or something. I think generally speaking, like you click with some people and you don't. And if you click with a person on an individual level and you want to be friends with them, you should invest in them. And if you find a lot of fun investing time with somebody, then you should be friends with them. And I don't think that you should base your friendships on too much on like value mapping. I think that will happen naturally if you are an authentic person who lives according to your values and you like other people that are like, kind of like sync with you. I do think that it's important to have a person or maybe a couple people that are very, I would say, like in tune with you and that you can have long, deep conversations about that are very important, that also maybe think a little bit differently than you and so can challenge you on some stuff. And I think that you don't necessarily need that number to be 5 and that you don't need to cut out other people in order to make room for that. So I would just say, like, let's get back to the original question here. How do you handle value conflicts? Do you determine, first you have to determine whether or not the conflict is worth having, or if it's just the values conflict and that's just going to be the way it is. And generally speaking, it's really great if you can dialogue with the person and you can talk about the conflict that you see between your values and their beliefs or their values, that you have a chance to hear them out, get their point of view, and maybe advance your own understanding of what you think and why. So I'm always pro conflict and I promote conflict in most of my teams. And conflict just means like being authentic, stating your opinion, and trusting the other person to be able to dialogue with you and trusting yourself to not take it, not be like a unilateral thinker and to not take stuff the wrong way and to actually have an interesting conversation about it. Now, that precludes some extreme views, like racism and I'm sure there's a lot of sexism. There's probably a lot of other really good examples of things that like I think are no non-starters basically, but I think that those are up to each person to determine for themselves. And I leave that more or less up to you, like where it is that you kind of draw the line. I will say that I think that people who limit their friendships based on political beliefs are kind of in for a very frustrating future life that way. And then I think also that people who limit their friendships based on religious beliefs are kind of trolling, because I don't know that there's really a appropriately learned answer to religion yet. And so if you can't handle the unknown and also faith at the same time as you can like a normal human friendship, then probably you need to work on your mental pliability a little bit. Yeah, so those are my thoughts on that. And those are thoughts and opinions and have no real answers in them, because I think that your question is rather personal and is going to be answered differently by person. But those are at least the guiding principles that I have thought up off the top of my head in answer to this question at this exact moment, and maybe subject to change by tomorrow. So without further ado, let's keep moving on. All right, I want to talk about the Mac program a little bit. This is a advertisement that's gonna hopefully be defunct in a couple of weeks, because we're gonna have the app launched, or at least the MVP is going to be live, which means that anybody who purchases is going to jump right into there. But this is essentially a mindfulness-based acceptance commitment training course for performance. And right now it's a video course, and soon it's going to be an app. And you can find it at that URL. Check it out. All right, question 3.
Hi, Weldon. This is Will. My
Hi, Will.
question is in regards to a response you had a couple of episodes ago about training mouse speed and accuracy, and that is, what would you recommend in terms of tools, exercises, or programs to work these aspects? And then how would you go about translating those exercises or training into an actual environment in-game, especially given in a shooter? such as CSGO or Overwatch. In CSGO, you shoot from mostly a stationary position, whereas in Overwatch, you are usually moving with 0 movement acceleration and have to take your movement into consideration when counter-aiming. Really enjoying the show. Thanks.
All right, so I always recommend Kovacs for all shooter training, and even for some training for MOBAs as well. But essentially in Kovacs, you can load a profile for a lot of different games. So they have different profiles for Apex, for PUBG, for CSGO, for Overwatch. And so you can put in a lot of the guns, and then you can play different like training maps. And you really want to break it down to the different movements, right? You want to be able to strafe shoot. So you want to be able to like move and keep your mouse on a bead while you're interacting with the environment. And you're like essentially continuing to unload bullets into somebody. And then you also want to be able to like twitch and shoot. So in other words, you move the mouse hair directly to the target and you click it when it's over the target. And you want to do that without kind of like stopping over it, hovering, waiting for your accuracy and then clicking. You want to be able to do it as it's flying over it, whether you overshoot it or not, or whether you stop on it exactly or not. You kind of want to like click it on the target. So those are the 2 motor skills that you want to practice. And it starts by not doing the wrong thing. So even if you're better at shooting by like moving your mouse slowly to the thing, hovering over it, tracking it for a little bit, that's the name of the skill, tracking for a little bit and then clicking, you still want to force yourself to do the one you suck at, which is usually the one where you snap to the target and instantly fire until you are actually good at it. And do it as slow as you need to and get up to as fast as you can. And then to take those into the game, I don't think there's really not much to do. You just concentrate on making sure you're doing the same kind of things in the game as you're doing in the training program. And I know that at least Fortnite has a lot of training stuff built into it and a lot of custom scenarios that you can train the same skills, so you don't need Kovacs. And I don't really know about Overwatch. CSGO also has a lot of training drills too. But Kovacs is like so similar to CSGO that I don't think that there's really much to do about the difference between the 2. It's always better, obviously, to use the game they're actually training if the drills in it are any quality at all and can be reproduced rapidly. So good luck with that. Have fun. All right, jumping into the last question from Brendan.
Hey Weldon, my name is Braden. I am a content creator for eAthlete Labs, which is basically just a YouTube channel for competitive gamers who want to make it to the pro scene. Now, first of all, I just want to say thank you because you've been a big inspiration for the channel, and it's still a modest size. We're approaching the 50,000 subscriber milestone, which is pretty awesome. But I've learned a ton from watching this show, so thank you for everything. Now I'm going to throw out a big question here. So if you were, say, bringing on a new player for your roster, maybe you're holding tryouts of sorts, what specific mental skills, behaviors, and attitudes are you going to be looking for in a player? And what sort of behaviors or attitudes are red flags that you'd want to avoid? Awesome. Thank you.
All right, Braden, thanks for the question. I have to think about this one for a little bit. There's a really clear answer, but I'm not sure that I can say it succinctly. Essentially, it's a little bit like, I look my fellow interviewers in the eye and we kind of like roll our eyes and we're like, yeah, I know. Or we look them in the eye and we're like, definitely this guy. It's kind of like there's a lot of like little factors you're pulling together, but essentially we're looking for markers of mental resilience and growth and maturity. Same as you're looking for in a lot of just successful workers or successful people on teams and people that you would want to work with. So one definite plus is reflectiveness, the ability to reflect on an experience and explain what the takeaways were, like lessons learned and how you applied them. So the ability to display or show growth on top of that is another good factor. Every esport team wants to believe they're going to be hiring somebody who essentially is able to think critically, of themselves, and is able to manipulate their behavior and grow. just at the base level. So that reflective skill is a key part of critical thinking that is not always present. Aside from that, I would say that it's a little bit organization dependent. So CLG, for example, the team that I work at right now, is a sports team owned by a sports team, essentially. It's an esports team owned by a sports team. And so they look for some things like the desire to be one with the team, to do team-based activities, to be friends with their teammates, to kind of like rough and tough it and always believe in their teammates, and double down on that kind of aspect. And some teams want like raw ambition, and some teams want talent and awareness of talent and aggressiveness. So that you kind of gotta. It's similar to making a resume when you figure out the company you're applying to, and you kind of tailor your resume a little bit to get in tune with them. Understand the DNA of the team that you are applying towards or interviewing for, and kind of like tell your story or your narrative with the information, because it's a short interview, so you can't include the entirety of yourself. Include the information that is most useful to that organization or that is most amenable to them. If I were applying for Warriors, I would do a lot more with like, talent and aggression and stuff. And if I were applying to the Knicks, I would do a lot more about like teamwork and rookie talent and the ability to try to carry a losing season. Sorry. Probably shouldn't say that. I wish I knew how their season would have gone had it continued. Because it seemed like it was really picking up a lot of like positive things there. But anyway, thanks for the question. And 50,000 subscribers, man. Hey, that's twice what I got. So way to go. Nice job with your effort there. Hope that your content is continuing well. And I will jump into the end of the show. I think we already went through the announcements. We already went through the Mac advertisement, and we did 4 questions. So remember that you can send your question to this show by going to anchor.fm/Weldon Green. And there's a little message button there. You can also find every single possible podcast link for this show, whether it's iTunes or Google or Spotify or whatever, on the anchor.fm/Weldon Green. Anchor spelled ANCHOR, so Onchor for those of you phonetic spellers. And make sure to subscribe if you're on YouTube. Click it. Send in your questions. See you guys next time.